be here. Hi, everybody. Sagar, Shah here, president and co-founder of Reform Lodging. I'm here today with Rick Mehta. Rick is running for Congress in the great state of New Jersey, and he is an absolute champion for small business. Rick, pleasure to have you here today.
Hey, Sagar. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to see you. Rick, if you could tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what led to your political journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, Sagar, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And kudos to you for all the hard work you're doing to help champion and save small business. So let me start by telling you my story, Sagar. My story, probably much like yours and many here in New Jersey, started 52 years ago when my father first immigrated to this country. When he came, he didn't have much, only $100 in his pocket. He flew into JFK Airport, saw the snow on the ground, and took the bus to Scranton, Pennsylvania. Saw the Statue of Liberty. He saw opportunity. He saw hope. He saw freedom. He met my mother at Temple University, and they got married. They fell in love, and along came myself and my sister. I went to pharmacy school many years ago here at Rutgers, and I actually worked overnights to put myself through law school. I went to the FDA, and I've always been intrigued by regulatory practices and the law and the intersection of public health. The reason why I'm running, and a lot of labels on me, I've been a biotech entrepreneur, I'm a law professor, and I've done a lot of accomplishments, but the two that I'm the most proud of is being a husband and a father. And I started to think about what the future of our state is going to be for our children, and I have 3 boys, Sagar, ages 8, 5, and 3. And I really am concerned about how they're going to break out of create generational wealth, and how so many of our children are going to break out of cycles of poverty, what the future of public health for the state of New Jersey is going to look like, and who are the politicians that are going to continue to fight for us to live that American dream. I'm fortunate. I feel like I have, and my parents have allowed us the opportunity to achieve the American dream, and I want to make sure that for generations to come, we're going to have that, and that's why I'm running for Congress.
Great, Rick. That's absolutely a very inspiring story, and the sort of the values of that having that immigrant mentality and background, I think resonates with our organization as well, with many of our members. So, Rick, you're running on the Republican ticket in a historically Democratic state, as you know. Tell us about the influences, both personally and professionally, that led you to embrace Republican values.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because a lot of the issues that I represent actually have nothing to do with party or partisanship. A lot of the issues that I support, fiscal conservatism, breaking cycles of poverty, saving our small businesses, and allowing children to live the American dream, have nothing to do with being a Democrat or a Republican. See, I think the Democrat Party has had a hard time embracing and breaking free from corporate interest and special interest. Before I decided to run for U.S. Senate last year, and last year I was the Republican nominee for United States Senate, and Sagar, let me tell you, I achieved over 1.8 million votes, setting the record for the highest number of votes ever received by a Republican candidate. And thank you. We're very proud of that. And let me tell you, in New Jersey, there's only 1.4 million Republicans. That means over 500,000 non-Republicans voted for me. Why? Simple reason. It's because the beliefs, the common sense principles that we've put forward in terms of our platform, the things that we know we need to do to fix this state, is what resonates with the average voter. Now I'm looking at endorsements. I'm not looking at lofty elitist politicians for their endorsements. I'm looking for the pizza shop owner. I'm looking for the baker down the street. I'm looking for the hair salon owner, the barber that had to scrap to put together their life savings to open up their business and live that American dream. Those are the endorsements I'm looking for. And resoundingly, I got 1.8 million endorsements last year when I ran. So for me, this ticket is not about party politics. It's about putting New Jersey first.
That's great, Rick, and absolutely inspiring. And Reform Lodging represents the interests of small business owners. We're for the little guy in an industry that unfortunately has become overtaken by special interests and big corporation franchisors and the like. You mentioned small business, and sounds like you've spent a lot of time with small business owners. What are some common trends that you've noticed with constituents that happen to be small business owners? What are their needs, and how do you think you can move the needle to support them?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because right now, that's on the forefront of everybody's mind. The one thing we can't ignore is that we are in the middle of a pandemic still. Whatever your beliefs about COVID, the truth is governors that are overreaching have instituted policies and mandates that have absolutely crushed our small business industry. Now, let me tell you, over 1/3, or I'd say 50% of the businesses owned on Main Street are run by immigrants. 30% of our businesses we've lost because of overreaching lockdown policies here in the state of New Jersey by Governor Phil Murphy. So when you're looking at common sense, reasonable policies that put the interest of business owners and public health, there's no one that understands that better than me as a former public health official. Sagar, I forgot to mention, I used to run a health department. And I led the health department through the Ebola outbreak, potential Ebola outbreak. So if there's anyone that knows about pandemic planning and protection, it's me. And I can tell you the overreaching fear tactics that this governor used that led to the shutdown of our small businesses is unjustified and unethical and frankly unconstitutional. So when you talk about individual liberties and protecting it, resoundingly to your original question, what have I heard? I've heard, why can't we have politicians that stand up for our small businesses? You vote for people to represent you, not lobbyists, not corporate interests, not other special interests that my competitor, and I'll look at in my congressional district, the incumbent, Tom Malinowski, has made millions of dollars profiteering off the pandemic, meaning in stock trades on insider information that he knew while he was in Congress, while he is in Congress. That's unacceptable. Me and you, we'd be in jail. Him, he's in Washington. So things have to change. We have to hold our politicians accountable. We need to protect our small businesses. And frankly, we need to make sure that we level the playing field for those that feel like they don't have a voice. The restaurant owner, while they're trying to do their books and save their business, do they have time or the money or the resources to hire a lobbyist to push for particular changes in the law that's going to help them out? They don't.
Right.
And the same thing is happening in every industry. Whether it's the hotel industry, the restaurant industry, especially the hotel, hospitality, and restaurant industry has been hit the hardest. Who's looking after those interests? We need politicians that are going to stand up and step up and make the right changes.
So to that end, to hit on that point, our organization was formed at the height of the pandemic. Our co-founders and myself realized that there was an inherent void amongst the existing advocacy organizations that were out there. There was a major void with not addressing sort of the greatest, most critical issues that affect our members. So one way that we were able to grow and become more prominent in our industry was because we started discussing fair franchising, and we started enacting a significant level of activities that were geared towards helping even the playing field, if you will. What is your official position on fair franchising?
Well, let's talk about this, because one misconception that I think the public has is that when they think about franchise owners, they're thinking about these fat cats that have a ton of money and conflate them with brand owners. And the truth is, franchise owners are small business owners. Okay, franchise owners have invested their savings, their life savings, to open up their restaurant, their hotel, whatever their business is, just to put food on their table. They're no different than any other small business owner. Franchising was an area that really took off in the 1950s. Ray Kroc and McDonald's and the entire American dream was couched on being able to be that business owner. Now, we're talking about people who may have one or two or multiple businesses, but when you start out, you're starting out at the basics.
Right.
And just in the same, they've been hit by really poor policies by politicians that don't take their interest into consideration. What we need to do is we need to focus on some of the tenets, the policy issues that are hurting these small businesses. So first, we have to look at the way there's equity in how franchisors are able to contract with the brand owners, right? First of all, as a small business owner, you're going to get beaten up by corporations that have big lobbyists and big law firms. And that's the truth. Now, these big lobbyists and law firms are spending a lot of money in Washington on K Street and other major lobbying firms in order to push their agenda. Who's going to stand up for them, right? At the end of the day, the franchise owner is still a small business. So what happens is you end up with contracts that become unfair, inequitable, and they have the inability to spend the same amount of money to fight these K Street lobbyists and these law firms. Believe me, these guys charge like $1,000 an hour, right? That's how much the small business owner might make in a month. So the inequity in being able to have a fair, good faith dealing has to change. Now, there are a couple of things that I think can be done in Congress across the board to level the playing field. And we truly need to level the playing field so that small businesses have the ability to have equal negotiating power. First, look at some of these vendor contracts. I mean, these brands for years have outgrown their britches, right? In order to push particular vendors. Now, I don't know if they get kickbacks or money back. That's not up to me to decide. But what is true is that when you have competition in the marketplace, and everybody knows this, you're going to have lower costs. Why wouldn't you want to institute policies that are going to keep the same amount of quality in the business, but also allow for fair negotiation and better pricing? Of course you do, right? It's a no-brainer. So making changes like that, creating equitable rights among small business owners and their corporate brands, and allowing for fair practices in vendor management, those are some of the basics that we can do in addressing Congress. And I'll tell you, next year, when I get to Congress, this is going to be one of the first things that I do and that I address. Give small businesses a voice at the table.
You know, we're very happy to hear that, and it sounds like, you know, you have a deep understanding of the various nuances that affect, especially hoteliers, for example, and the two of the biggest hot button items in our industry are vendor mandates, as you touched on. You know, having to exclusively purchase goods and services from a limited selection of vendors, and it has been proven. You know, you touched on kickbacks as well. Some call them rebates, but at the end of the day, they're kickbacks, and that is a huge issue in our industry right now, and it's good to hear that you mentioned these items. The second issue is the unilateral changing of franchise agreements once they're executed. And last year, prior to the pandemic hitting our shores, a bill known as A2682 was introduced in the state legislature, sponsored by several congressmen, one of which was, several assemblymen, one of which was Raj Mukherjee, dancer as well. And question I have for you is, do you support this bill, and why?
Sure. Well, again, I'll be running for a federal position, but I think state governments absolutely need to do their job at the state level in order to pass protections for small businesses. Right now, as I mentioned, in the throes of COVID, we've had more than 30% of our small businesses shuttered. Not just shut down from lockdowns, but closed for life. Now, that affects me personally because, look, I come from a family of small businesses. I myself am a small business owner. My father has had a food business here in the state of New Jersey for over 25 years. Last year, his business has done the worst it's ever done in the history of his business being in business. So, you know, I agree with the spirit of the bill. I think that, broadly speaking, we need to do more to protect small businesses. I agree that states could take certain measures to level the playing field so that corporate and special interests don't influence the outcome of contracts. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, you're sitting here trying to start up a business. You already are wearing multiple hats. You're a CEO, you're a CFO, you're a COO, and now you have to be a general counsel. You know, these corporations already have multiple, like I said, $1,000 an hour lawyers and finance guys backing them. So absolutely, we need to do more to pass that legislation. Each state should look at it with close scrutiny. I'm surprised Phil Murphy hasn't championed this as someone who pretends to be a champion for small businesses. But you know what? As the dust starts to settle, we know which politicians are truly standing up for small business. I'll tell you, because people ask me, well, why small business, Rick? It's the American dream. I mean, plain and simple, the entrepreneurial spirit was born in Jersey.
Absolutely.
Let's save that.
Right. Sure thing. So finally, Rick, to conclude, within our hotelier community, we have had serious issues over the years with unity. And whether it's because of fear of reprisal or if it's just inherently, um, you know, the protective nature of entrepreneurs of their own, endeavors, it's been very difficult to corral people and have one unified voice, if you will. With your conversations that you've had, specifically with hoteliers, how do we move that needle, and how do you think you can help unify, our group's members, as well as the members of other advocacy organizations that exist?
Well, look, in any organization or any industry that's looking for unity, you need to have a cause.
Sure.
What is it that you're unifying around? And I think exactly to your point, you found the particular issue that should unify you guys. And first of all, I'm very proud of what you guys have done in terms of standing up your own organization to really champion these particular rights. But I'll tell you what you also need in order to create unity. You need a receptive ear among your politicians, right? And I'll tell you, when I get to Congress, you will have that receptive ear. You won't have to go through hoops to get a seat at the table in order to listen to policies that are going to help our small businesses. And that's the platform I ran on, that's the platform I'm running on, and I'm not going to stop until I get the seat and get to Congress and make the changes that we need.
Right.
Unify around an issue, get receptive politicians that aren't influenced by corporate greed and lobbyists, and really champion the things that help save the American dream.
Well, Rick, it's very nice to hear this, because I can tell you from my personal experience at the height of the pandemic, when we were attempting to lobby on critical issues with topics like CMBS loans and avoiding default. We did reach out to quite a few politicians, and not having that seat at the table and not having that contact that you can really lean on, it was very sort of challenging effort. And it's good to know that, provided that we help you win, and then you're able to corral all of your constituents together for this. It's good to know that we have a supporter in Washington.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons is because oftentimes you have milquetoast politicians in this environment because they don't know what to do. So they lack confidence. The reason why I'm confident in what I say is because I have a background in science and public health. I started my career as a health professional, and I ran a health department. There's no one that understands how to navigate COVID and still save our small businesses better than me. And so you will have that receptive ear. You will have a confident politician to push back on poor policies, and we will get our economy thriving again. We will keep and save our American dream, Sagar. So appreciate that.
Good. All right, everybody, that concludes our chat with Rick Mehta today. And Rick, if any of our members or anybody else wants to get in touch with you and learn more about your policy positions, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, Sagar, thanks. So now is the time to get involved and step up. You want a receptive congressperson to listen to your needs? Go to rickfornj.com. That's RIKFORNJ.com. Get involved, donate, volunteer. We need everybody that has the same interest of saving our small businesses to champion me and champion our American dream. rickfornj.com.
If anybody wants to learn more about Reform Lodging, our new advocacy platform launched last year, please visit www.reformlodging.org. Rick, it was an absolute honor to have you here today.
My pleasure.
I look forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks, Sagar.